is Max Prime. I'm with Cammien Ray, and we're here to discuss the Flash crossover. Cammien, I want to start off by saying, what an episode! That was intense. With Vandal Savage, Hawkgirl, Hawkman. Let's just start off with, what was your first thoughts of this episode?
So many balls to juggle. There were so many people. I know it's a crossover, so you're gonna have a lot of players. But normally, I expected the Team Flash trio and the Team Arrow trio, but because the story centers around a new and very present and a little bit sassy villain, and then we've got Hot Girl, and now all of a sudden we've got Hot Guy, and there were so many other players, and I will say, I think they did it pretty well. I think they juggled everybody's storyline pretty well. There were tiny little things that I maybe would have tweaked, but we'll get into that later. Overall, pretty good juggling skills. Or Tetris.
The first couple scenes, we seen Barry teamed up with Cisco. Then we seen Arrow, teamed with Diggle and Thea. What do you think, as far as for that, you think they showed not enough of Diggle or not enough of Caitlyn,
Yeah, you're jumping right into my cons, and yes, I will say, first of all, the one character that I would say there's definitely not enough of was Diggle, and I get it. It was a Flash episode, so we are going to see a little more of the Flash players than the Team Arrow players, but Diggle is part of that Team Arrow core trio, and I feel like he just wasn't around as much. I love the scenes he was in. There was a scene there at the end where it was Diggle, Kendra, Cisco, Felicity, and Thea sort of all around in the Arrow Cave, and it was a really beautiful sort of wrap-up scene to me. We didn't have Oliver and Barry there in the room, but that was okay with me. We sort of had all of our key favorites all there, all interacting. It was really nice to see. As somebody was pointing out to me on Twitter, there was a lot of diversity, which was really nice to see, especially from the CW, who struggles with that sometimes. So I appreciated that, but more Diggle. Could have used a little more Diggle.
We had Caitlyn holding down the fort there in Star Labs, right?
Yeah. So I am biased because I love Caitlyn. I love Caitlyn's interactions with Barry, and I on a romantic level, I'm a little bit of a shipper there. And then I love her friendship with Felicity. So I would have loved for her to tag along on Team Flash's trek to Star City, but I totally get and respect why they kept her behind. She was the perfect choice for that because in terms of a storyline, she has that understanding of everybody's hero journey. Somebody was referring to her before as sort of the hero whisperer. She can kind of keep people in line without having her own powers to worry about yet. And she has that common sense. That's why she and Joe always seem to be on the same page, which is nice to see. She was the one tonight saying, you got to call Joe. People are coming in and shooting people. Can't handle this all by myself. So there's a level of, that Caitlyn being left behind is not going to end in her being the damsel in distress. She can believably save the day. So I like that, and that's a pro on my list. It's an itty-bitty con on my list because I would have loved to see particularly just some tiny little reference to her friendship with Felicity. That's something that's always been kind of strong. It's always been really believable because they're both smart science ladies without being copies of each other.
Yes.
And again, friendship can be kind of hard. Friendship between girls can be kind of hard to find on superhero shows. So just a little reference to that to show, they're kind of trying to respect and show that. But I think based on the promo, we might get a scene of them together tomorrow. So I'm excited about that.
So what do you think of this Hawk Girl, Hawkman? I know that's how you said before, it sounds like Hot Girl, hot guy, hot man.
They're hot.
So when Kendra and Cisco, you see them together, they're having their moments, and all of a sudden Hawkman shows up, and I'm like, oh no, Cisco, and I know that it's their destiny for Hawkgirl and Hawkman to be together, but you got to kind of feel for Cisco in a way, it's like, wow, this is Cisco's moment of actually, having that relationship with someone, and then Hawkman shows up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love Cisco. I'm Kendra's new, but I love Kendra so far. I wasn't super invested in them together, until tonight, and then I was like, oh, they're so cute. I'm starting to love them just as she was ripped away, which I think is what they were going for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a kind of it's a bit of an unbelievable pairing at first, right? Because they've tried to play off Cisco as being, you know, a little more on the like awkward or silly side. Season one, we found him a lot of times used to be almost the comic relief until they realized this guy's pretty fantastic at delivering like the deep emotional stuff too, and they started giving more of that. Carlos Valdez is blowing it out of the water. He's amazing. So when they first started, it is supposed to be kind of an interesting premise that like, you know, the dorky guy gets the hot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was working. It started to work. But then, you know, when you saw the whole Destiny thing, ultimately her destiny is to be on Legends of Tomorrow, to be honest. So we knew it wasn't going to last forever. And I'm okay with that. I think on The Flash in general, this is a show with multiple Earths, multiple timelines. You're going to get multiple ships, and none of them are going to last forever. You just got to root for, like, a good storyline while you have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with the beautifulness of Hawk Girl and Vibe getting ripped away from me.
Okay, and then we're going to go into speculations now, and let's talk about Vandal Savage, the immortal one. Vandal Savage, big character villain in the DC universe, making his way onto the Flash and Arrow universe. So, what is your speculation in the team actually stopping Vandal Savage? I know that, you know, Barry, Oliver, they're on their way to go back to Central City to stop him. I mean, what's your thoughts?
I mean, the good guy has to win in the end, right?
Sometimes.
We're not quite to the mid-season finale, so I don't think we're all going to go to hell in a handbasket yet.
Okay.
But Vandal Savage is a pretty strong villain, and I don't mean that just in his powers. I just mean he's executed pretty well. He's written pretty well. He's performed pretty well. He's a little sassy, which is kind of fun. It makes sense for him to be used for a crossover between like a darker show and a lighter show. It's working for me. So I would understand if they stretch him out a little bit past the crossover, but I don't think I've heard spoilers that say that he makes it into the mid-season. He might. Have you heard anything about that?
I'm thinking that he maybe might show up in the mid-season. But you know, I mean, I was going to say that even to follow up the speculation, you know, definitely, I mean, he's going to survive, obviously, as he is the main villain in the Legends of Tomorrow show, which is coming as well. So
right.
Maybe Barry and Oliver maybe not stop him, but they have to maybe they'll subdue him to a point where
he's not going to die per se.
Well, of course.
It's just a matter of how he gets, you know, sort of pushed to the corner of the gym.
Final thoughts for this episode tonight.
Final thoughts. Well, we covered most of my pros and cons. The final thought is a positive. I just was really happy to see most of my faves really strongly highlighted in this episode. Like I said, my first reaction was just that there were a lot of balls to juggle here. There was a lot of heroes. There was a lot of villainy moments to handle. There were new heroes coming to be. There were, you know, sort of like, what do we do with all these people? And I feel like for the most part, it was juggled really well. Like I said, I would have preferred to maybe see a little more Diggle, although I understand, you know, we're not going to get as much of the Arrow people. And I would have preferred just a little bit of Caitlyn interacting with the main, you know, two trios.
Yes.
But I was happy with the way it all came around, and some of the weaker players at the show that both shows sort of have to work with, and angst, and, you know, who do I choose, and which vampire is best. You know, it's nice to see a healthy relationship stay interesting. So that's one, but that's a pretty strong Arrow-sided one. Yeah. I think that covers it all. We didn't get any Snowberry, but, you know, we can't always have everything we want.
Well, if you, the viewer at home right now, follow Cammien Ray on everything, Twitter, Instagram, let's see, Tumblr, she's everywhere. Cammien Ray, follow her. I'm going to blast that all over the screen right now. But thank you, Cammien. Thank you for joining me on this Flash Arrow crossover reaction video.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Prime.
No, you're quite welcome. Thank you.